Okay. Hi, everybody. It's 4 o'clock on September 17th. We'll start the Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting. I have a motion to adopt the minutes of the July 23rd meeting. Seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank you. Agenda and additions and deletions. I believe you wanted to add something to the agenda, Councillor McNulty?
I'd like to add for direction to staff to put a crosswalk in on number 6, and I believe it's Viking Way.
Is it Viking or Vulcan?
Vulcan Way, sorry.
Okay, we'll bring that. We'll have
Painted one and signage, not necessarily a light.
Okay, are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, any objections to the addition of number 6 Road and Vulcan Way? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. Number 1 on the agenda is the River Road Traffic Assessment Update, Hamilton Neighborhood Engagement. And we have Sonalia Hingorani going to come and talk to us about it.
Sure. Madam Chair, I don't have anything further to add to the report, and staff are available to answer questions.
All right, I see Councillor Heed has, or is he there? Hold on. Councillor Heed, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. So to put this in perspective, the traffic engineering was asked to look at a problem on River Road with respect to some of the accidents that have happened there, some of the speeds of people driving there, the complaints that do come in. In my understanding, you had some consultation with the Hamilton area residents, and I think only about 30 people showed up. Am I correct in making that assessment?
Through the chair to Councillor Heed, yes, at the open house in Hamilton, we did have 30 attendees. 8 were residents from the Hamilton neighborhood, and 22 were residents along River Road.
So out of all that, we come up with roadside enhancement to protect utility poles. Am I not getting it, or is there a disconnect here?
Is there a question?
Yeah, am I not getting it, or is there a disconnect here? We come up with a traffic calming measure for the Hamilton area around River Road, and there's a recommendation which is different, and I understand the background of all this, the analysis that were done and all of that. And now we're asked to make a decision that the roadside enhancement project to protect some utility poles.
I think that was due to the accidents, but maybe you could inform us on the rest of that story.
Absolutely. Through the chair to Councillor Heed, we did ask Hamilton residents regarding potential traffic calming on River Road. There wasn't the level of support for measures. What we did hear at the open house and through the survey was that the key concern in Hamilton is about the power outages that they're experiencing, of which 3 in the last 2 years were related to power poles being struck. And so therefore we are bringing forward actions to address the concerns that we heard from Hamilton.
And how many accidents involve power poles? Just
Madam Chair, there were 3 involving power poles. They were related to vehicles turning, not related to speeding on River Road.
And this is a BC Hydro expense or a Richmond City expense?
Madam Chair, we are pursuing funding with Hydro regarding this. We have discussed this with them. They are in support of the measures and treatment that staff are recommending. However, with that said, staff do recommend still going ahead with these interventions to increase the visibility of the poles and make them more resilient to being struck in order to address the concerns that we heard from the Hamilton neighborhood.
Okay, Councillor Heed, did you have any other questions or
Well,
comments?
yes, again, right back to my point. I guess I'm just not getting it. We have a problem on River Road. We have complaints come in, and I've talked to a couple of residents on River Road that said this has been an issue for multiple years on what is actually going on in that area. Matter of fact, there was one road that was supposed to extend all the way to River Road. It never did, and that was in the planning stages around a decade ago. So Public Works, we come up and we say, let's do something. Let's look at the problem on River Road. You know, we've had trucks that have had accidents, trucks that have gone into ditches. We've had the road blocked off. we've had several things. We have people that use River Road to take a shortcut and speed down River Road. And now I have a report in front of me that doesn't talk. I'd be fine if you said, look, we consulted people and, nobody's in favor of speed bumps. They're all just in favor of putting a $150,000 a year RCMP officer doing radar there. That's what they're in favor of. Okay. But I have a report that talks about roadside enhancement with utility poles. And Madam Chair, you just heard that the accidents as a result of poles were because of turns. They weren't as a result of the poles that are there the way they are now. So I'm just dumbfounded how I could have this report in front of me when it really, even in your background, you talk about the reason why you're looking at this particular area. It doesn't say anything about the poles.
Okay, we're going to go to Councillor Wolf, but first let's let staff clarify that.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Definitely the discussion of traffic calming on River Road in East Richmond has been a long-standing matter within the city of Richmond. Back in, I think it was the summer of 2024, we had a delegate from a resident who had expressed concerns with speeding on River Road. So pursuant to the traffic calming policy, we engaged the residents who were fronting the proposed traffic calming measure, and there was not sufficient support pursuant to the policy. We brought back a report to this committee, and there was a desire to do additional consultations with the residents in Hamilton directly, which was the result of this next level of engagement. Consistent with the engagement on River Road, the Hamilton residents also did not meet the required threshold in our traffic calming policy for traffic calming. However, of course, council always has the discretion to direct staff to install traffic calming measures if so desired. What we did find in our engagement with the Hamilton residents is the reliability of BC Hydro along this corridor. And so staff took that as some feedback and encouragement to present this to council as an additional or associated feedback that we heard through this process for council's consideration.
So while you didn't go out looking for that information, it came to you through the consultation with the residents of the area.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay. Do you have a
So,
follow-up
and
question?
I'm going to hear from Councillor Wolf here in a second. He lives out in Hamilton. He knows what's going on there. And I want to thank Roland for this. He's a breath of fresh air. But I don't have a problem if the residents are saying, look, we've got to fix these BC Hydro power posts. We've got to enhance it. And I would like something in front of me that says, we went out, we looked at River Road, we consulted with the people of Hamilton, the people on River Road. What they want is increased traffic enforcement, and that's what you're recommending. I'm fine with that. But now I have something different now to consider about utility poles. I would like a report that is historically put in on our records saying that our traffic engineering went out, they consulted with the people on River Road, we listened to the people that were complaining in that area. We then listened and consulted with the people complaining in that area. We have come to the conclusion that there's not going to be any of the traffic calming measures that you have been very good at, Sonali, in putting them in Richmond, and we've had good feedback. That's what I would like to see in our records that saying happened. And then if we've got to deal with these utility poles differently, fine, let's get something different on that. I just don't find the connection with this other than people, we went to a consultation meeting on dangers on River Road, and people were talking about this.
So let's hear from the rest of council members and committee members, and then let's ask staff a few more questions of staff, because I mean, it's not uncommon for another subject to come up when you go out for public engagement. It's often out of left field, but we have to remember that 62% opposed having speed bumps. And this is not the first time, Councillor Heed. We did this about 5 years ago, as I recall, and like literally we had the room full of residents, and they were very opposed to all this. We were going to put, I think it was 23 speed bumps in at that time.
But I'm not arguing that, and I absolutely agree with you, Madam Chair. I'm just saying we're confusing the two.
Okay, let's go on to Councillor Wolf. I'm going to just turn on your mic here. There you go.
Thanks. So I do have a few questions I'll get to. I just want to clarify some points in the report. So yes, only 8 members from Hamilton came to that additional community meeting, but there was 231 responses as well from the survey. So a lot of Hamilton did respond to this issue, and although the report says that there's lack of majorities for respondents from Hamilton, I actually see there is somewhat of a majority. So if you combine 2 of the 3 categories, the support for installation of speed cushions, which is a solid infrastructure solution, and then there's 14% who supported some other solution, which I assume is mostly enforcement and not physical infrastructure. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, yes, the 14% is a majority of support for additional enforcement.
Yeah, so then if we combine those 2, then it's well over 50% of Hamilton respondents who want something done because, like myself, when we're on River Road, going the speed limit or over, we're still getting zipped past by cars, trucks, those one-wheel scooter things. So there's definitely safety issues in regards to the Hamilton residents using it, but also for just the other members of the public who are using this roadway. I get the River Road issue. A lot of them are in the business as well of as being residents there. So operating a farm, just yesterday at planning, an approval to potentially turn a single residence into a major raised parking lot for more trucks, and there's a lot of truckloads of fill that would have to come first. So there's just a lot more challenges coming for this area, and with that comes more frustrated drivers and more people speeding on the oncoming lane of traffic. So although I support the findings and the approach that staff have here, I also see in the long term the full upgrade to the River Road in this, which is decades away. But when that's done, things like these poles won't be a big concern because they're not going to be as close to the roadway as they are now. Okay, so anyway, those are just some things that I pull out of this report. I value the fact that we should just, if there's improvements to be made to prevent vehicles from hitting them, then yeah, I think we should put up those curbs and maybe collect the money from Hydro or some other source later. Just the clarification on that, in the report, it says that in all these 3 cases of the traffic poles being hit, they're due to negotiating a turning movement. Pretty sure the turning movement is the fact that River Road is not a straight road and you're always in somewhat of a turn when you're on River Road. So it's not like they were coming out of a driveway or going into a driveway. I know some of the locations of the poles that were hit by trucks, and they weren't going in and out of the residence next to them. And so my other, I guess, final question is more in relation to what's going on now. So there's already a lot of work happening, and River Road is closed from like 7 Road to where it connects with Westminster Highway from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day of the week, or every weekday. During the closures, I know there's heavy machinery moving rocks and riprap along the side. Can some of these other improvements be done during this closure time instead of having future closures of the roadway?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, should council endorse staff's recommendations, we will certainly pursue coordination of the works occurring and to get these measures implemented in a timely manner. We'll coordinate with engineering regarding their works in the area and the proposed treatment around the hydro poles.
Great, and then through the chair, just to follow on that one, what's the timeline of the current work program? I don't remember seeing a date on there of when that's to be done.
Madam Chair, to Councillor Wolf, we have the budget for these works, so subject to council's endorsement, we would work towards implementing them this year.
All right, with that, I'll support the conclusion and the improvements for roadside enhancements as laid out in the report. Thanks.
Sorry, we just have Councillor
Thanks, and through the
Councillor
chair.
Hobbs, go ahead.
Thanks, and through the chair. Thanks for the report. I know it's a difficult one and has been going on for a number of years. I did go to the open house down in Hamilton, and that was informative. I just have a quick comment, and that is one of the issues too is the invasive species along River Road. And sometimes, you know, if we don't stay on top of that, it can cause cars to maybe move around them. And I know we work really hard at that, but it's a big problem down there, just how quickly they grow. So just want to add that in there. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Heed, you have another comment?
Yes, and I just want to hear from our staff on whether it's causation or correlation to these hydro poles where we're spending money to fix it up to accidents. Can you draw any correlation? Or can you say, you can't say causation because you said there are turns?
So you're asking if there's correlation between putting those barriers in and the accidents that have occurred?
Yes.
So-
Through the chair, we got the locations of the hydro poles that were struck impacting the power in Hamilton from BC Hydro. These measures will be monitored and we will assess their effectiveness going forward to see if they do help prevent future power loss in the Hamilton area as a result.
Did you also work with ICBC on this?
Through the chair, we did look at ICBC collision data, and again, a lot of those were related to turning movements and not speeding on River Road.
Because of the way it went, okay. So you've
Just-
talked to ICBC, you've talked to Hydro, you've talked to the people who live in the area, and there seems to be consensus that they want these barriers, yes?
Through the chair, we haven't discussed the treatment around the hydro poles with the neighborhood. What we consulted with River Road previously, and then the residents on Hamilton, was more about the speed cushion treatment on River Road.
Okay, Councillor Heed, you want to wrap it up?
Yes, I am going to wrap it up with this last comment with respect to this because this is documented. I want to know if staff came up with any rationale that supports when the power goes off on River Road that we have had accidents or further problems related to traffic.
I think you talked to Hydro, and I believe that 2 of the 3 accidents caused the power outage, is that right?
Madam Chair, the power outage was in the Hamilton neighborhood. They didn't indicate that there was any other results pertaining to traffic impact on that condition during that time. It's certainly something we can investigate. What we do know is BC Hydro does not have any plans to address their hydro line on River Road. And given that they are susceptible to being impacted, staff do feel that this treatment will at least let us assess if we are seeing a benefit to the Hamilton neighborhood by bolstering up these poles, making them more resilient to impact, making them more visible to traffic that's making those turning movements. And we'll continue to work with Hydro on a longer-term strategy, but right now they've not indicated to us that they have any imminent plans to change the hydro conditions on this roadway.
Okay. Well, although I'm sure that the power outages is the main reason for bringing this forward, and Hydro sounds like they're supportive in terms of wanting to agree to put them in and maybe even pay for part of them. My biggest concern is you hit a power pole, you got a good chance of being killed. Or if you hit a little barrier, it kind of flicks you off in one direction or the other. I would think it could save lives on top of being able to save poles. I don't think it's just about the poles. Oh, Councillor Hobbs, that's a hot topic today.
Well, sorry, and I'm not on this committee, but it just, Councillor Heed just reminded me of something. One of the traffic impacts actually is when the pole either goes down or there's a problem, is there's a detour. So a big impact, whether you live in Hamilton or whether you live on 8 Road or River Road, you come out and you have to go all the way back through Hamilton or you have to go all the way down to 7 Road, not to mention your power's out. So on a traffic note, that's the issue for people and it can take quite a while. Mm-hmm. And so it's the big detour, and it's a big detour when you can't go down River Road.
Okay, I believe Councillor Liu called the question. Do I have a seconder? Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Number 2 on the agenda is the Springfield Drive traffic calming, and option 2 is to implement 2 asphalt speed cushions on Springfield Drive as described in the report. And this is to replace temporary speed cushions. Is that correct? That were kind of an experiment?
Madam Chair, yes, the asphalt speed cushions are to replace the temporary rubber ones that have been in place.
And I understand from reading the report that the temporary rubber ones create a lot of vibration and noise, whereas the ones that are spread out over a longer area just don't have as much noise and vibration, so it's better for the people who live nearby.
Madam Chair, that's the feedback we're getting. This was a new product. We wanted to try it out. What we see is because it's bolted into the roadway and it's more abrupt and not as gentle as the permanent asphalt cushions, that it does create noise concerns. But where we've replaced them with the asphalt ones, they have addressed the noise and vibration concerns for residents.
And we have support of the neighborhood.
Through the chair to, well, Madam Chair, when we first brought forward this traffic calming initiative, we almost had majority support. So per the policy described earlier, we're just short of the majority support on this one, which is why we're bringing it forward for council's approval.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that? Oh, we got Councillor Hobbs. 1 second. Okay, you are live.
Through the chair. Yeah, well, I live in that neighborhood, so just a quick question. It is effective, and there is a lot of support from people I talk to. But when you put the permanent ones in, the ones that were put in on 2nd Avenue, south of Stevenson Highway, were really effective and kind of the right kind of angle and depth and height and all that, as opposed to some that were put in a long time ago, say on number 3 road. So is that the style that's going to be put in on a permanent basis?
Through the chair to Councillor Hobbs, yes, this is the newer model that has the lower profile and the more gentle approach, similar to the 2nd Avenue.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Liu, and second, and all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's passed. Number 3 on the agenda today is reusable container review, and we have option 3 is recommended by staff. Well, I'm not going to go into all the details. I'm going to let you talk about it. Thank you so much, Christina. You want to go ahead and tell us more about this?
Madam Chair, I don't have anything to add, but if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Councillor Wolf.
Thanks. So just last week, I attended as the person appointed from Richmond to be on the Zero Waste Committee for Metro Vancouver. They had an item on their agenda called Programs and Policies for Waste Reduction at Public Events. And it was there because I requested it the month before, very much like this item is on our agenda, because I brought this issue up after we had a presentation from Dr. Dodd to speak to us about plastic in our environment, in our bodies, and some of the solutions to it. So first off, my first question directly to the report is there room to increase the budget from going with option 3 and only having an expense of $14,000 coming from the existing solid waste recycling program budgets? Is there more from within that budget that we can add? And the reason I'm bringing this up is I think option 3 is good, but I think we could boost option 3 to have more than just the Cherry Blossom Festival and the Farm Fest next year, but boost the ability to target a couple of our larger events and maybe not make all of the Salmon Fest or the Maritime Festival like 100% exclusively reusable materials, but perhaps just drink cups at one of them, or just some of the food trucks in one area at one of the large events as well. So back to that question, is there a potential higher cost that we can pull from that existing program budget?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, we would be able to accommodate another smaller event, but it is relative to the cost, is relative to the number of attendees that are attending each event. So when we start talking about the larger events, even if it is just cups that we are looking to identify, it could be upwards of $50,000 to $100,000 per event. For Salmon Festival, for example, there's 70,000 attendees that are expected to attend that. And so vendors, food trucks would be required to prepare and have reusable containers available should every attendee order something from them.
Great, yeah, so I appreciate that, yeah, I understand the complexities with that large event, but I think that's the eventual outcome that we need to work towards. Yes, we can start with pilots, but let's not start so small. I'd like this committee to think about asking more out of our program here, out of our solid waste program. I think Table 1 is really valuable, the fact, that, and I shared this with the Metro Vancouver Committee, that Table 1 on page 22, 23 shows what other jurisdictions' actions are. And all of these are outside of Metro Vancouver, except for one, the one that says support for reusable cup or container share programs. But look at some of these other policies and actions in other jurisdictions in Canada, where it's like required for food service providers to accept customer-owned reusable cups, containers for takeout. So many places don't kind of force the companies to allow this to happen. They say you can refuse people or will. So I think that would be great. I think having the second one, reusable food service ware required for on-site dining. Some of these municipalities like Victoria, they've got on board for that. Banff seems to be doing some great things. I know that's not what this item is asking. We're looking at just reusable containers for public events, and I think we can do a better job than option 3. I'm glad we're not being recommended option 1 or 2, because I think those are somewhat limited in the outcome, like getting education for businesses. They're still not going to be pushed to do it. They can receive the information, and some might pick it up, but unless they're really like told you have to do this because it's a council-approved policy, we're not going to get the results. And so things like the beer garden at one of these events where people are enclosed in one space and can't take that drink out anyway. So let's make all those single-use cups no longer single-use. Let's get a reuse company, or let's make this cost, like was mentioned, $50,000, but let's start creating our own with our own City of Richmond logo on it. And so we don't have to keep buying or getting a service provider. We start to do this in-house because we're always going to have these large-scale events. It's going to be something long-term, I assume. So those are my comments. We'll see what others say, but I'm happy with option 3, but I would like to make an amendment, if no one else is, to ask for additional funding and to target more events, not just the 2 listed for 2026.
Councillor Heed, did you have some
So,
comments?
yeah, point of order, is he making that amendment now? Because then the amendment will supersede the motion on the floor.
I think he wants to hear from the rest of council before we go there.
I like option 3. I'm going to fully support option 3. We have decided to do a pilot. We've got qualified staff that can evaluate the pilot and determine how we're going to expand it. I don't think we have to go, and as you said, Christina, that large at that expense at this point until we know it's going to work for Richmond. So I don't want to go further spending some money on this until we actually do the pilot and then determine if in fact that pilot gives us the results we're hoping, that then we expand it and perpetuate it throughout whatever events we're going to have and let it evolve that way. I'd be hesitant to move forward on the larger expense and evaluation until we're able to. I think the Cherry Blossom is a good place to start. It's reasonable. It's something that we can handle, something that we can fully evaluate.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heed. Councillor McNulty, did you have questions or comments?
I just have a comment on this, and I thank staff for bringing it forward. And I actually support Councillor Wolf in what he's saying. You know, this activity has been dealt with many times in North America with many of the major runs. You know, things like the Boston Marathon and others, and with disposable cups, et cetera, recycling, et cetera. And I think it's important. I'll support this at council level, but I'd like to also see what the potentiality is of it, and staff come back with a suggestion. You mentioned one event and it might cost us $70,000. I'd like to, see that. But also, we've got to do an educational aspect here and an attitudinal change. to not only the organizers, but also the public. And I would like, I think it has tremendous potential. And to suggest the idea, it's great what we've got. Okay, we'll try it with 2. They're very, very small. I don't know how we're going to measure the results given the number of people we get through, et cetera, and what the results will be specifically, other than it'll be a good thing. And so I just see this really being an opportunity for Richmond to take the lead in this whole aspect. And I think Councillor Wolf also knows where it is. And if it means a few more pennies, a few more money, let's put it into an event budget. Budget $10,000 or whatever to the Salmon Festival, if indeed that's what we're doing, or any of our other events. Anyhow, I'm very supportive of it. Good job. And as I say, I'd like to see us continue along this line. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Liu, any questions or comments?
Just a question and a comment, I think. Thank you very much for this report. Appreciate it. I think it's a great idea to start up with a pilot program. I do agree with Councillor Wolf that maybe there's some ways we could increase it. I think a lot of us have gone to our fair share of Arts County fairs and have those old beer steins, the plastic beer steins sitting in our house somewhere, or your brother's house for sure, because I've Marie Kondoed that stuff long ago, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Like the dollar beer mug, you pay the $1 for the beer, and for the rest of the day, you can keep refilling your beer for X number of dollars. And whether you abandon it there and they wash them out and use them again, or you take them home as a memento of the occasion, and because they're low cost enough, sometimes that's a fun thing. And so maybe that would be a fun thing to do as one of those memento type things. So, we'd invest in them, we'd sell them, people have to buy them for the beer garden. I don't know if next year is the time to do it at Salmon Fest, because there is the taking down of the community. Like, it's going to be enough going on for people that it might just be too much. It might be the thing that breaks the camel's back. And it also might be something that we could partner, say, with just the chow mein group, of having some reusable plates, and then people can like bring them back or keep them, or it's the chow mein plate, whatever, however we look at that kind of thing. And maybe there's an option to do something with Nations Cup for the soccer thing. Like, that's a really popular opportunity. Maybe we have some sort of co-branded, City of Richmond mug thing, and people have their Nations Cup that they bring home, and next year they can bring it back and get their beer in it again. I don't know. I think that's where there's an opportunity to maybe think of another opportunity to do this, following what Councillor Wolf said and Councillor McNulty is, yeah, we can be a leader. Well, are we a leader? Arts County Fair did it 33 years ago, right? So maybe it's not that leadership, but it's doable, and maybe it's worth looking at a smaller scale, like maybe our FIFA Cup next year. We're going to be doing something like that. We are going to have drinks. Maybe we can look at it for one of those events and see what the extra cost is to incorporate that and come back to council with that. I think that would be worthwhile to understand, because it's a bigger event, and then if it has that memento quality to it, something you take home and you have your cup.
Councillor Wolf, I think you have, sorry, Councillor, were you finished? Yep. Okay, Councillor Wolf, you wanted to do a follow-up?
Yeah, just one other point I didn't make earlier. At that Metro Vancouver meeting, there was another item about single-use item waste composition, where they analyzed all the waste coming in, and it seems like last year of the 2024 analysis, there was more takeout containers, plastic, more plastic utensils, more plastic cups, more straws, more paper bags and other forms of utensils than ever before in our region, partially because of higher population, but there's also just so much, so it's just swelling that way that people are going away from the reuse mentality and just one-use giveaway takeout containers and all that stuff. So I think the region, municipalities, everybody needs to work harder at this, and I appreciate what was just said around the table. The support for the option 3 and the acknowledgement that more can be done, maybe not right now. I also was hesitant to ask to amend this budget, and maybe where it does need to come from, like Councillor McNulty mentioned, is when we're looking at approving the budget for the events themselves, if we're wanting to tack on the funding needs then. maybe that works better. So I'm willing to, doesn't sound like there's appetite for an amendment right now, so I think I will withdraw that idea right now. I think we'll go forward with this, and I'll keep tabs on other ways to get the budget approved and get our staff to try to convince the vendors to make changes, as well as consumers to make changes.
So maybe you could just walk us through a little bit. So these are reusable containers at a public event. And there may be people who take them home and keep them as collectors, or there may be people that bring them back. There also may be a bunch that end up in the garbage. So the idea, correct me if I'm wrong, is that this is a pilot to see if it's going to work. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, that is correct. So we would be working with a third-party vendor who would supply the containers to all of the food trucks. They would then give the food in those containers to the residents or attendees. When the attendees are done with the containers, we would have an additional collection container at our regular garbage and recycling stations. We would have green ambassadors there to help make sure that they're going into the correct container. And then the containers would be amalgamated by our staff and volunteers, and then the third-party vendor would then pick them up at the end of the event, wash and sanitize them, and get them ready for the next event.
So we would hopefully at the end of this have maybe 80 or 90% of the containers we started with. So while $14,000 seems like a lot, it's kind of a startup fee to get the ball rolling and to see how much we end up with at the end.
Madam Chair, yes, through other events that have trialed reusable containers, we understand that there is roughly a 20% loss rate for these containers. There are some individuals that like to take them home, or they do end up in a stream that is unsalvageable. So that 20% will add on to the cost to run the program. Similarly, if we were to run a City of Richmond container share program, we would have significant capital upfront to purchase all the containers, and then we would always be having to refill our stock for that 20% that is lost.
Okay. Councillor Heed, did you have one more comment?
Yes, I did, and this is just a question because you guys got me thinking on this right now, because if we're going to have these large events such as a Salmon Fest, Dragon Boat, or something of that nature, or the tall ships or something like that. So you threw out, and I just want to be corrected on this, a figure, if we were going to do it for the Salmon Festival, that'd be about $50,000.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, for Salmon Festival, it would be around.
He's
Oh,
Wolf.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Councillor Heed, my apologies. It would be around $100,000 for Salmon Festival.
100,000.
That's correct.
Shall we start slow?
Madam Chair,
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Who's there?
it's Chuck.
Oh, Chuck. Councillor Chakao is remote somewhere or talking to us. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question and also a suggestion. Now, so when after the event, so when those containers are being collected, who is going to do the cleaning, the afterworks, the city staff, or the supplier or the third party who's supplying these containers?
Through the chair to Councillor Au, it would be the third-party contractor that would be sanitizing the containers after they're used.
Okay, and my suggestion is that I really like the idea from Councillor Wolf, but I don't think that we can make that decision at this point because we don't know what the cost will be. So I wonder if staff can give us more information before the council meeting next week. That I would suggest that we pass the motion as is today. But if staff can supply us with more information before next council meeting, perhaps we can modify or make an amendment to the recommendation next week. I like the idea that perhaps we can do it ourselves in terms of providing those containers.
So we're looking at probably 80% recovery. If you think that would be different with a larger festival, because I was at the Salmon Day Festival every year, and it's organized chaos. There's people bumping into each other, and everyone's having a great time, don't get me wrong. But to try to implement that kind of program in that kind of environment might really reduce the recycling of those products. Anything to add?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I may add, for the 20% loss rate, that is for events that have a relatively closed-loop environment, where there is a rather controlled entrance or exit and limited entrances and exits. That can make sure that we have containers at each of those areas to collect the reusable containers at the end. For events such as Salmon Festival or Maritime Festival, where the food trucks are spread out and not in a controlled area, and then the event footprint is significantly larger, there would be a higher risk of increased loss in 25%, 30%, which could add $10,000 to $20,000 on top of the estimated costs.
And that's why it makes more sense to do a pilot. Let's learn from our experience, and, because if we start telling the taxpayers that we want to spend $100,000 on recyclable products for just the Salmon Day Festival, I think they'll have a heart attack. So keep it simple, and I would support the motion. Do we have a motion to adopt? A seconder? All those in favor? Okay, that is approved. Thank you very much. It's going to be fun to see how it works out. Okay, we were adding to the agenda the number 6 road and Vulcan Way crosswalk. Do we have someone from staff that can talk to us about that? Yeah, come on up. Councillor McNulty, did you want to explain why you wanted to add this to the agenda, please?
Well, we've been getting, most of us, or all of us, been getting emails from folks in that area where they try to cross the road and they're having the same safety problems we have in other areas in the community. And my suggestion is that we paint a crosswalk in and we put some signage at 50 meters either side of the crosswalk to let people know that they're pedestrians crossing. We don't need to have a flashing light in there and spend $100,000. We could start off with a bit of paint and a number of signs, and just to let people know that there's a crosswalk coming, slow down, just like you have in schools. We don't have flashing lights at schools, but we have a little sign, about 18 inches by 1.5 feet, with a child on it. Well, I'd have a bigger sign, but that's okay. That's my thing to do. So I think this is one of the things I'd like to refer the general manager to just go ahead and do it. What is it going to cost, $500 for painting a sign, that two signs, one at either side of the road, and put up just like we did out in Hamilton.
Good, Mr. B, did you want to respond to that?
Yeah, no, we can certainly do that in the interim. We do have a project to actually put in a traffic signal there. We've run into some difficulties with that, and we're going to bring a report to you on that in October. But we can certainly in the interim put a crosswalk there. That's not a problem.
I'll vote for the money for your signal.
Okay,
No
and
problem, you got my vote.
we have Councillor Galanders online. She has a question.
Yeah, thanks. I thought that some of the emails we'd been getting about the area was regarding the sidewalk ending. Correct me if I'm wrong, but even if that's not what the email was about, we used to have, my husband's company used to have a warehouse, rental warehouse in that neighborhood. So around the corner from Vulcan Way, if you start traveling east on 6th Road and then go into the Knox Way area, we're in that Riverside area there, that's a large employer. And the nearest bus stop, if you want to get employees that are taking the bus to work, which some of ours did, they get off at 6th Road in Vulcan, walking north, then the sidewalk just ends and there's no sidewalk. And then they had to walk on River Road with brambles in a ditch on one side with trucks whipping past them in order to get into this large area of employment. So I'm just wondering if that is also being looked at in conjunction with the light at Vulcan that you're talking about. Perhaps the sidewalk is going to wait until the Dike Master Plan. I don't know, but if you could give an update, because it would all connect together.
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, we hadn't contemplated a lot of sidewalk improvements, some at exactly number 6 in Vulcan, but we can certainly look at that and bring that back at some point in time.
Okay, so let's find out, maybe even just a memo on that, where we're at with that. Councillor McNulty, I believe you.
No, I'm done.
You're done,
I don't have to
okay.
vote here or anything.
Yeah.
I'd just like to see staff to get under direction.
Perfect. Councillor Heed.
So I just want to make sure that we have acknowledgement from staff, from the general manager, they'll take this under direction. That's all I'm looking for is
For
confirmation.
this site, General Manager, Mr. Swipe.
Yeah, Madam Chair, we'll take direction to install the painted crosswalk as soon as possible at number 6 in Vulcan with appropriate signage.
Excellent. So that's a direction from council. Thank you very much. I think that's a good interim, as you suggested, Mr. B, solution. And then let's see what we can do with CN Rail and come up with something better down the road. Thank you very much. Okay, are there any managers' reports? No? Okay. Oh, Councillor Wolf, you have a question of
Yes,
staff?
so I was talking with Councillor Glanders yesterday, and I nor her, I guess, brought it up as a potential item or discussion for this meeting, just very briefly. If staff could comment on their ability to remove blackberry brambles and branches that are reaching onto our multi-use pathways right now. Councillor Glanders had made a comment about the city's liability with potential injuries for users of the multi-use pathways, and either having an accident or getting cut by some of those. I'm not sure if staff have any comments on their ability to address, especially Westminster Highway is the ones I see regularly, where half the trail has access to Blackberry.
Ms. Backcraft, can you help us on that?
Yes, Madam Chair, we can certainly go take a look at that. I mean, we do it on a complaint basis and within whatever budgets we have, and can work with our parks partners on that as well. Sometimes it's parks that can assist, sometimes it's public works, but
So
you
if-
know the specific area, we will go
And-
take a look at it.
If a citizen has a complaint or a concern, where would they direct that to?
They can call our city work yard, the 604-270-8721 number, and then we can appropriately direct their complaint and look into the matter. If it's private property, we write letters to the private property owners and require that they do it, or we will do it at their expense, or we will look into doing the cleanup or the removal ourselves with our own crews where it's obstructing the safe passage of
Okay, well,
pedestrians.
maybe just hang tight for a minute. We have Councillor Galanders online. She has a question as well.
Yeah, thanks. And Westminster Highway's been a problem for a while, but Council Wolf and I have brought that up multiple times over the last year or two. But now I've noticed that it's on Steveston Highway multi-use pathway, especially west of Gilbert, from Gilbert all the way to 2 Road is, or was it from Gilbert to 4 Road? No, Gilbert, west of Gilbert. You'll see it. It's just, there's massive brambles, and they are taking up probably a third of the path that we just built. And I'm really concerned because you've got bikes going in 2 directions on an already slightly narrower multi-use pathway than some of our others. So somebody's going to get pushed into this thing and get seriously hurt. And we did just have the increased budget item to do, comprehensive blackberry removal. So, and when we did that, I mentioned, can we start with our multi-use pathways? But I haven't seen anything. So I just don't know. I know that we've done it in some areas. We've received some letters of, and this is with the Parks Department, I think, but we've received letters of thanks for some of the blackberries that we started removing. But so yeah, I don't know if we're working in silos on this one, but any thoughts on that?
Through the chair to Councillor Glanders, the blackberry removal is a budget ask that's coming forward for council's consideration in 2026, because that will require comprehensive staff resources and funding and vehicles and equipment. So what we can do in the interim is take a look at the Steveston multi-use pathway west of Gilbert that Councillor Glanders has highlighted to see if we can go in and ensure that is safe for users at this time. So I will take that away if you allow that.
Okay, so Steveston Highway multi-use pathway and Westminster Highway multi-use pathway, you now officially know that the public wants something done. Take a look at it, let us know what the options are, and maybe send us a memo.
Certainly, thank you.
All right, thank you ever so much. And I just had one question. I've met with some people that are very upset about the lack of bus 404. Where can people complain to? We don't control the buses. We don't control TransLink. So what is the best avenue for getting the attention of TransLink?
Madam Chair, I don't have their address or phone number with me, but they can contact me and I can put them in touch with the right location where they can make their complaint with TransLink.
Yeah, because I'm hearing that they only come every half hour on number 4 road, and then they're full, so they don't even stop, and now it's an hour, and you get some seniors sitting out there for an hour. That's quite worrisome. But okay, I will pass on your phone number then. Thank you, Mr. B. All right, any other questions or comments or items? Okay, ask for adjournment. Second, all those in favor? Thank you very much. Now we have Councillor Wolf doing the park.
All right, thank you everyone for being here. I'd like to call the Parks and Recreation and Cultural Services meeting for September the 17th, 2025 to order. First, I'd like to have a motion to adopt the minutes of July 23rd. Thank you very much. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? All right. Then we'd like to actually, before I go any further, is there any other items for the agenda people want to bring forward that haven't already told me? All right, so we are going to have some managers' reports at the end, the typical updates, and a couple other upcoming events, so stay tuned for that. All right, let's carry on. Next committee meeting will be here, October 28th, and we have some delegations today. We're going to start with our item number 1 delegation, which is Robert Burkout, Board Chair of London Heritage Farm Society, to delegate on the London Heritage Farm Society operations. We'll get your mic turned on there. There they are. And if you could introduce both of you, and then you have 5 minutes, and it might have a time up here, but we'll ignore the time if you have very valuable things to say.
Thank you. My name is Robert Burkhout. I'm the chair of the London Heritage Society. Shelley Niemek, our manager. Let me just read the report that I concocted. First, I'd like to thank the City of Richmond for the fantastic work it has done on the grounds around the farmhouse, resulting from the London Heritage Site Master Plan. Additionally, numerous upgrades were made to several buildings. The Society greatly appreciates these significant improvements which could not have been accomplished without the positive working relationship between the city and the society. I also want to thank the Richmond Public Works employees who work so diligently and professionally on constructing and restoring various buildings surrounding the farmhouse. The society is dedicated to preserving the farm history and making it accessible to a broad audience of visitors. The Volunteer Sustained Society is able to organize a variety of programs and events which I will outline for you. With the chickens being a top attraction, we and they are delighted with the new housing. And finally, safe from predators and can keep their feet dry. Nothing pleases visitors more than watching chickens roaming free, carefully guarded by the meanwhile celebrity rooster. The apiary has been relocated from a shady spot to a sunny and open area where the apiarist draws many onlookers as he tends to the bees. The beekeeper regularly gives educational presentations about the importance of bees in general and specifically their pollination services to the vegetable gardens. To provide nutrition for the sometimes thousands of bees, we established the lavender garden and rose garden that they can feed on. The allotment committee directly supervises the allotment gardens. Their function is to make sure the plots look well tended and that maintenance rules are adhered to. On the east side of the house, the flower gardens look better than ever before and are kept gorgeous year-round also by volunteers. A busy year at London Farm starts spring with preparing annual plant sale. We lost track, but soon we will celebrate the 20th version. Another major tradition is the Midsummer Family Farm Day. Both events host between 1,000 and 1,500 visitors. Between these significant events, we are open to senior teas, school programs, as well as big and small picnics and weddings. London Farm has proven to be a vital social hub for our citizens. The from the COVID years recovering tea room is a convincing example of this. We are fortunate to have hired excellent staff to restart the tea room and gift shop after the COVID years. At the end of the season, the Society organizes a farm fest where fruits from our orchards are sold, as well as the surplus of vegetables from the allotment gardens. So, how does the Society board manage all this? Gardeners are contributing 10 hours of community service per rented plot. From this, we can expect approximately 600 work hours annually. Several very dedicated volunteers contribute significantly more. The Society has about 70 members who pay a small membership fee and also contribute to events and programs. From that volunteer service pool, we calculate what we can achieve and what we cannot. We offer two types of membership, those who rent a garden plot and those who support the Society concept. We count over 20 supporting members. Often these members help with projects for which we are very appreciative. The total count of members is a fluctuating 70. This year marks the second consecutive year that the farm has benefited from the engagement of interpreters, or some call it ambassadors. Their contribution enhances the visitor's experience at the farmhouse by sharing stories, providing information, and highlighting key aspects of the heritage site. The interpreters add an essential contribution as storytellers, greatly appreciated by visitors of the Society. With this in mind, there is a call for making the farmhouse interior more attractive and meeting the same level of quality as the splendid garden. City staff and Society are initiating a plan to upgrade the farmhouse exhibition, providing a more interesting experience for the public. I'd like to shed some light on our financial situation. The Society is a proud guardian of a healthy contingency fund. Our treasurer, who recently received the prestigious Heritage Award, is a keen keeper of the books and saved us from landing in dire straits and from having to knock on any door with hat in hand ever. We are a $100,000 annual business. From our tea room, gift shop, events and rentals income, we sustain the daily costs, salaries, hire auxiliary staff to support us at events and cover a substantial amount of maintenance. Our bank account allows society to purchase machinery and tools. We buy tents, tables, chairs. Administrator, tea room staff, baker, and jam maker are on the society payroll. This combination of a strong volunteer community and a rich heritage story is what makes London Farm unique and invaluable while always seeking improvements. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming forward and sharing that. Shelley, was there anything that you wanted to add that wasn't said there?
No, I can just say that I appreciate all the time that the volunteers and especially people such as Robert, who is our main chicken carer, and we have people that are in the gardens from 7 in the morning till midday and still continue to support us and help with the plant sale, with the Family Farm Day, and this Saturday, our Country Fest.
Great. So I see there will be a couple questions around the table. Maybe I'll just ask a first one. Could you talk about the hours of operation or the staffing, the biggest challenge you have with providing the doors to be open to the public? Like, is it your society's existing staff? You mentioned here about hiring auxiliary staff to support major events. Like, is it the major events that's a problem? Is it the every day of the week that's the issue?
Right at the moment, we've just changed to our fall hours, so September through to the end of December, we are Saturday and Sunday. Although we're having people, with the weather still being good, coming to the doors, knocking on the door, aren't you open? No, we're not, unfortunately. We have the heritage ambassadors or interpreters that come in on Saturdays and Sundays, and they give the tours, they tell the story, they get the interaction with the visitors. Whereas the people that are doing the tea, they're serving the tea, the food and doing the cleanup and such. So, and we also have some staff that we have for setup for weddings, takedown, things along that line. But without those heritage ambassadors, it's a big impact as to, you know, just engaging people and having them there. So we would like to continue with that. It enables us to be able to operate the gift shop, operate the tea room.
Great. Yeah, I appreciate that. We got 3 questions around the room here, so we'll start with Councillor Hobbs.
Thanks, and through the chair, actually you asked the question I was going to ask, so I'll just make a quick comment. Yeah, as the liaison to London Farm, the progress that's been made, maybe the last 7 years, maybe 6 years, has been incredible, and you outlined a lot of it. For anybody listening, you want to check out something fantastic, check out the bee video. That one is great. So I think it's really important for us to make every effort we can to have our heritage sites, including London Farm, open for interpretation and for people to go through. You know, and just briefly, just on a bit of a holiday, and I noticed in different countries, that's something that is just standard operating procedure. There are staff, there are people working there, and it's open to the public, and the interpreters are a big part of it. So I'll look and see what we end up doing at the end of the meeting or at the end of this presentation. I think the chair has something in mind. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor McNulty?
Yeah, thanks very much. A great report, greatly appreciated. I'm absolutely blown away and impressed by your financials. Keep up the good work. I wished all our organizations did the same thing. I just have a question now, 2 things. One, I appreciate it, and the scones are great, and the jam is even better when you have tea. But from a heritage point of view, given that London Farm was the first area plowed on Lulu or Sea Islands in the history of Richmond, how much do we focus on the heritage and the history thereof as a destination point?
I think that can be improved, and especially on the first floor, a lot needs to be done. I'm planning actually more interesting rooms than there are now, and I would like to have one of the many walls that are empty right now filled with more history, London family history, and where the farm, how the farm started, what happened when it started, much more emphasis on the family, not only what they did in Richmond, but one of the three big families there, how life was at that time. I think that's very important.
Well, Ron Hyde and I were working on a book on the London family and London's, as you were. So, and thank you for that. I think you can go a long way in that. In terms of rental fees, number of us, what was the 3 events we had there in the last couple months? Really great events. And I'm just curious, how much did they have to pay for it? And how many events like that would you have during the year? Where I think the Ukrainian event,
The Ukrainian, we
BC
also had
Day
BC
event.
Day, yes.
Yeah.
And then usually the majority of the events are private events with weddings.
Okay.
We've had baby gender reveals, we've had celebrations of life, all types of events happen. And some are basically at a picnic rate, and others are for the full wedding where they're having both the reception, the wedding and the reception there. So it's an all-day affair type of thing. So the cost, you're looking over $1,000 as to a full day in comparison to what you might be paying in other locations.
So they're basically competitive in
Yes.
in that.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's great. And I guess the other thing, given that, and I appreciate that, somehow maybe we should be promoting through even our own website that these places are available because it is a city facility. And we should be bragging about it that you want an outdoor area, et cetera, for X, Y, or Z, consider London Farm. And anyhow, I nothing but compliments to you and kudos to you, the board, and all the volunteers. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go to Councillor Heed.
Yes, since you suffered through my questions on traffic, how's the traffic around that area? We had traffic calming measures in place there.
Yeah, traffic is bad. Parking
Still
is-
bad?
Yeah.
Oh, the parking.
The parking is bad. It's always a problem at the event, yeah.
Speeding on River Road's better though?
So there's what we call the West Field. Sometimes in certain situations, we allow people to park there. At big events, it's a huge problem. We try to promote people coming on their bicycles, and we have these buses, how do you call them?
The handy
Handy buses at big events. But whatever you do, it's still a problem.
But the speed bumps have improved, and yet
Yes.
there's people that speed up to them
Yep.
and have a nice little ride.
I know what that's all
They
about.
jump right
But it
into
has
London Farm,
improved.
yeah.
It has improved.
Good. So the question I have is your volunteers, are they mostly Richmond residents that volunteer?
Yes, mostly Richmond residents.
And the people that, whether book your facilities, weddings or, private events or some other events, are they mainly Richmond organizations?
Yeah, mainly.
Say 80%, and then
Yeah.
you might have some people, the wife is from there and her family is from there, but the new husband might be from Burnaby or something like that.
Especially the gardeners, we think gardeners should be living here in Richmond, should be local.
Good,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
All right, thank you. So I don't think there was anything from Councillor Glanders or Al. So I'll like to make a referral to staff to review the request of London Heritage Farm Society and bring forward options for maintaining their open hours for the London Farmhouse. And then all those in favor? Oh, sorry, comment, sorry, Councillor Heed?
Yes, given the information we were just given regarding the parking problems there, if we could also add that to have staff review the parking situation there to see if we can improve it.
Great. Yes, I'll definitely accept that into the motion. So beyond just the maintaining open hours for the farmhouse, also look into parking improvements. Okay. And friendly with the seconding. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming forward. All right, thank you very much, everyone. That takes us to the second item, and which comes with a few delegates as well. So this is Teranova Rural Park Historic Assets, Phase 2, Draft Program Plan. I'd like to actually start with the two delegates, and then we'll have staff come up, and then we'll have our council discussion and motions going forward. We do have a staff recommendation there, but perhaps there could be more added to the two parts. So our first delegate, I believe the first one on the list was Kevin Taka. Yeah. And all of us at the table here do have a copy of it, yeah. And it's gonna be projected up here, so great. So you have 5 minutes, and the time might be shown up there, but yeah, take time you need to share with us, thanks.
Oh, that's not mine, that's David's.
Sorry, I might have gone out of order.
That's all right, no worries. Both of our names have a V in the middle. I can work through that. はじめまして、Kevin Takehida です。だけど、Take を問います。お願いします。Hello, my name is Kevin Takehida Lee, also known as Taka in the Japanese Canadian community. I am the son of Angie Koyanagi and grandson of Hiro Koyanagi. His parents and siblings worked at Teranova Cannery and lived in what is now known as the Edwardian Cottage from 1927 to the start of the mass incarceration of Canadians of Japanese descent in 1942. But I'm not here to talk about history. I'm here to share my experiences performing and exhibiting Japanese Canadian stories here in Richmond. For the past decade, I have presented my family's history with the students and parents at Teranova Nature School. I have also performed West Coast Canadian folk songs at Steveston Maritime Festival, and more recently, I exhibited a selection of some of my grandfather's 1,000 photos about Teranova from around the 1930s. The overwhelming response from participants has been excitement and intrigue. Richmond has been and remains Canada's gateway to East Asia. It hosted significant populations of Japanese and Chinese immigrants in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Now, YVR is where countless travelers, immigrants, and Canadians step off the tarmac and into Richmond, Canada. The tales from the early Nikkei communities in and around Teranova share landmarks with two great Canadian stories. The adventurous prospector from up north, such as Jack London's Yukon fable White Fang, as well as Lucy Maud Montgomery's sentimental series, Anne of Green Gables. The Japanese of Teranova and Richmond lived with values that are now enshrined as core to Canada. After all, as you know, in 1900, just south of Teranova, they opened the Japanese Fishermen's Hospital. This was the first hospital in Canada to admit patients of all backgrounds, all genders, and all ages to provide free care. In fact, this is Canada's first example of universal health care. Here I've provided some images that my grandfather protected and preserved throughout the Canadian internment. Many of these images were taken in Teranova and its surrounding communities. Now, I'm not a resident of Richmond, but I know you all are, so perhaps you can figure out where these photos are taken. On the next page, on the next slide, I should say, from attachment 1, page 26 of the handout from today, I have put some X's down. And if anyone's brave enough, I have a Canadian prize here underneath my grandfather's hat. If anyone feels they can identify all 6 of these, then your reward is deliciously sweet. And while you figure this out, I want you to have a little listen. Imagine yourself in 1932. You're a member of this Japanese Canadian community. Maybe you're a girl going off to school. Maybe you are a young man coming back home after a hard day's work on the ocean. Or maybe you're a mother taking a little break outside. And you hear this wafting from the Koyanagi house. Sorry? It's a dance song. It's a song about, you know, he's a man here, young man in a new place, but where's his love? I think it communicates well. So, anyone willing, I have helped out, there's little X's up there. Does anyone want to make a guess with maybe all 6, if you feel you have all 6? If not all 6, maybe you have 5. Maybe not have 5, maybe you have 4. Let's start with A. Does anyone think they know where A is located? the apple tree. Now, this apple tree was a gift from the Japanese Canadian community to the owner of Teranova Cannery because he was doing such a good job.
Is it the apple tree in the Teranova Park that's now the playground?
It is not in the Teranova Park. No, no. It's X'd out. It's one of the X's. Okay, I'll give you a hint. It's right by my family's old home. Yes, that's the Edwardian Cottage. All right, we're gonna go for the next one. B, Spirit Day. You know, it was Sports Day nowadays back then? Spirit Day. Now, I'll give you a little clue. The houses in the back are the clue there. It helps if you compare it with the apple tree. Here, I'll give it to you. I know I'm running out of time, I'm sorry. The B is just right behind, just down below, south of the cottage. And then C, Shimano Wedding. As you will know, the Shimano house is the Parson house. And then we have the wood plank road. If you notice that there are telephone poles, something that kids don't really know about nowadays. That's just the most south X. And then, of course, we have the Teranova Cannery Dock. That's the most north boat. And then the gravel road is River Road. And if you notice in the back, we have the cannery shop, which is located right in the center of it. Thank you.
Yeah, but that song was Bill McNulty's ringtone.
Oh, really? Bill, I didn't realize. That's wonderful.
Great, thank you for presenting in
Thank
a
you.
very colorful, creative way. I have a question from Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, yes, thank you. And I do know only a small smidgen of the history of the relationship here in Sea Island and the 6 canneries
Yes.
across the way. And I appreciate seeing all of this. Your relatives worked in the Teranova Cannery?
Yes, they did. I also had relatives working in the Vancouver Cannery just across the way.
And unfortunately, it's one thing from a historical point of view. When I came here in 1971, the Teranova Cannery was still there. It was dilapidated, falling in the river. And it's in that little alcove by the road. There's no historical marker. It's totally forgotten. And that was huge for the whole Japanese community. But through the chair, I'm asking a question. I'm not telling you, I'm asking you the question. and I think that should be recorded as well, because that, as fishers and what have you, that was the major industry of the day on Lewd Island as well as the farming. And I think it should be recorded. And I didn't see, I saw the X up there, but I didn't see it here. I'm sure there are a lot of stories because we're now trying to save a cannery store. And so I think with your support and others that we would even have a marker, if nothing else, that this was signage, wayfinding, and some photographs like this on that to preserve the heritage of the more than one Koyanagi family that worked there.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Now to Councillor Day, has a comment or question?
Thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you so much for these pictures. I'm assuming they came from your family. Have you shared them with the archives?
Yes, some are shared, about 10 or so shared with the archives. You can also go to the Teranova Nature School, where there is a little corner, and there's the gallery of my grandfather's photos, and it's quite beautiful because the frame is actually made from the wood of the barn that he built, and when he came back towards the end of his life, he didn't come back until his one of his sisters, who was very adamant, to say in the kindest ways, to revisit the family home. He came back and exclaimed, "It's still standing," because by no means was it built soundly.
Yeah, I would encourage you to make sure you share all of these stories and these photos with our archives, because our history is so important.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And then my comment, a question to you is, you've looked through the draft program plan that's before us and the staff recommendations. Was there anything further that you were looking for in this draft plan? Or
with my own practice, I think it is important to consult with the Japanese Canadian community. I am active within the community. I'm vice president of the Powell Street Festival, which is Vancouver's longest running festival. We beat the Folk Festival by 1 year. I think it's important to reach out to Japanese Canadians and those who've descended from those who lived in this area. Of course, that might be easier said than done. It may not be as direct, just because because of the expulsion of Japanese Canadians, as well as the removal of their properties, the ability to come back was exceptionally challenging, not to even mention the racism that my family experienced when coming back to Vancouver. So I think it's something that it should be consultation with Japanese Canadians community. There's the most definitely a healthy community here in Richmond. There's also Nikki Center, and of course the National Association of Japanese Canadians, which has membership throughout Canada.
Just to follow up on that, I know you're actively providing information. You've listed a few other organizations that are well established and probably already under our radar. If there's any others you can mention, there are staff in the room listening that could also consider reaching out to.
Absolutely. I would say Powell Street Festival as well. We often do tours for our young delegates from across North America. We bring them down to Richmond as well. So I know that our organization can also help with that.
Great. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. Nobody online. Then we'll thank you very much for the time you've given us. All right, that brings us to our second delegate, and if staff could bring the presentation forward for David Hickey. Yeah, thank you. And yes, you'll probably see a time up there, but take the time you need to get your message across to us. And we do all have a copy of likely the same slides that will be up there.
Great. Thank you. I hate to disappoint you. I don't have any music or pictures. I don't have many pictures. I don't have the sense of fun on me that Kevin has. In fact, a lot of what I'm going to tell you, I've learned very recently, because this history is not well understood by many people, including myself. You know, in another life, I'd be talking to you as a fourth-generation Richmond resident. I would be an upstanding member of the community. I'd be, you know, with clean living, hoping to run for office. But in this life, I'm somebody who's an interloper from the East, worse yet, a banker who worked on Wall Street for a quarter century. But I want to tell you, I didn't fly 5 hours and spend $500 to spend 5 minutes with you to talk about me. I'm going to talk about my mom, her family, and her connection to Teranova. I talked about Teranova being something that was almost like a mythical place in my mind. My mom mentioned that she was from there, but it was like Erewhon. I didn't know much about it. I only knew it was somewhere in British Columbia, and I wasn't even aware that her home was standing until about 15 years ago. I'll tell you a story about how Teranova, how my family was involved in Teranova. And, you know, a lot of this, again, I've learned through research over the last few months and years, but even as recently as today from my long-lost neighbor, Kevin. My family came from Japan. Actually, both sides of my family came from Japan. My dad's family lived in Kitsilano. My mom's family moved to Teranova. And my grandfather and his family were fishermen. He moved here when he was a young man. I think he was probably around 5 when he came. And I should say his father, my great-grandfather, was a young man from Japan. And as you can see, all around Sea Island, along the middle arm of the Fraser, there were canneries. There were 10 of them back in 1900. The one in the far left at the bottom is the Teranova Cannery. And you can see it also pictured on the bottom right. Some folks, I think Councillor said that he remembers seeing it. I've actually never seen a picture of this until about a week ago. By the way, that picture of the Teranova Canneries would make an awfully good T-shirt from if you ever end up deciding to make them. You know, the family worked hard, and the salmon were plentiful, and they did well. In fact, by 1909, they were able to buy what was Lot 3 and Lot, or Section A, I guess, those two lots in that blue, going all the way from River Road down to the not yet constructed Westminster Highway. So in today's world, goes from the Parson House all the way down to, I guess, where the barn is and the farms. They had 3 fishing boats. They plied the coast all the way up to Bellacoola, going up there and coming home with a belly full of salmon and delivering the catch into the canneries. They also farmed that soil, and they grew corn, they grew tomatoes, potatoes, beans. They worked hard, but they had a good life. And the only picture that I saw until a week ago of my mom before the war was this one. My mom is the one at the bottom with a cat, and her family, her sister to her left, her mother in the bottom right corner, her father, and my uncle when he was a baby there. This picture was taken around 1940, and obviously they're in front of the in front of the Parson House. And I thought, oh well, they look like they're doing pretty well, But I didn't realize until recently just how prosperous they were, until Kevin showed me the pictures of them having a big old party. So this was the wedding of my uncle, Keishiro, and Aunt Kyoko. And they're decked out in their finery in front of, again, the Parson House. And you couldn't think of a prouder guy in the bottom right than Keishiro getting married. Up in the top right is my mom and her family, and in some kind of weird Stephen King way, she's blocked out by that white flash of light in both of those pictures. So I decided to put them together, and well, this is perhaps a little bit creepy, but this is now, I have 2 pictures of my mom from before the war. So I don't really know much more beyond the pictures that I've gotten from Kevin. But I also looked into some of the archives around what life was like for them. And I was looking at what was in the Parson House, and I noticed in 1935 and 36, they put $3,000 in fixing up the house and extending it. Back then, that would have been somewhere between 7 and 10 years worth of wages. In 39, this is a claim that was made to the War Committee. They went down to Woodward's and they bought a Chesterfield sofa and 2 chairs. They bought an oak extension dining room table. They had a walnut bedroom set. And these were all bought in 39, 38, 1940. They were prosperous. They also had all kinds of other things. They had an aquarium with 200 goldfish. They had 3, I don't know why you need 3 grandfather clocks, but they had 3 clocks. They had 4 sewing machines. They had a button stitcher. So they had all kinds. They had a washing machine. They had a koi pond outside. So they were blowing their money on a lot of cool stuff. So I didn't realize this, but they kind of had made it. And then everything changed in 1941. So here, by the way, I didn't realize there was such a lively community around them. Here they are hanging out with the Koyanagi family. And again, these are pictures that I've only seen over the last week. Never seen these before. But this is the Koyanagis and the Shimanos hanging out together. My great-grandmother on the far right. Doesn't seem to smile much for the pictures. And it all changed in 1941 and 42. On the left is a note around the boat, 31-foot trawler that my grandfather had that was confiscated and then auctioned off. My mom is the one who's, I don't know what she's laughing about, but on the bottom left, there she is, smiling to the camera. And they're up in, I guess, the New Denver area where they were interned. So after they were uprooted from Richmond, from Teranova, they spent 5 or 6 months in the livestock building at the P&E, where that's what she remembers most, about the smell and the heat and just the foul conditions. But they eventually ended up in Kaslu, New Denver, and then moved out east because they weren't allowed to move back to the coast until 1949. And I say that I don't know much about Teranova, My grandfather never spoke about Teranova ever again. He never talked about fishing. He never talked about his time here. It's like it didn't happen. And then he became a carpenter. Man of the sea, decided to go swing a hammer because he's a long way from the ocean. And settled in Toronto. This is what it looks like today. And you can see, I took this from Google Maps. I didn't take this picture myself. And I superimposed the old map of their property, and you can see just how expansive it is. And I also relate it, just to give you some context, over what some of the properties look like. By the way, I don't know who's in the tax assessment, but that is not a $4.254 million house next to it. But you can see that whole tract of housing on an eighth of an acre, up and down, I forgot the name of that street, around $2.5 million each. 80 of them would fit on this plot of land. I see it's assessed for $68 million, but you can build $200 million of housing. You can build a small subdivision on that property. I just want to point out that I didn't realize this, but they lost a lot. They lost land, they lost property, they lost their livelihood. And I didn't even know about all this until very recently. Which is why I think it's important to have something for us to remember about what happened there. This is something I've spent a lot of time researching, and I only became aware of all these things recently. And what I'm asking is for the Parson House to be named the Shimano House. They lived there for 33 years. They spent a lot of time and money in it, and they had it taken away from them. There was a sign back in 2007 of the Shimano family, that one picture I showed you. It's not there anymore, but I think there should be signage and something that can help people understand that they were there, but there was a community there. And then I think in terms of programming, having a launch event so people know about this house. When I've told people, they were shocked when I told them the story about, like, what are you doing in Richmond? And I told them the story. And they think that I'm making this up. They said, because it is not taught in schools, or wasn't back in my day. And this is just a community that was raised and people were not aware of. And having some ongoing education. And I think particularly today, for the children of today, and for the adults of today, in the political climate we're in, I think it's important for people to realize that there are things that have happened in the past, and we don't want to repeat history. So, thank you for accepting me as a delegation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, much appreciated you taking the time to come out this way and give us, again, another very creative, colorful presentation. And I do know we'll have some comments, questions from around the table before we make a further referral. So Councillor Day.
Thank you very much to the chair, to delegate. It's great that you've come today because we're dealing with the Teranova Park History Assets Program Plan. And I had no idea about any of this. I thought all the Japanese fishermen were in Steveston. I didn't even realize there was people in Teranova.
What I've learned is the cool ones are in Teranova.
Well, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
No, in fact, I don't know if you've read the book Forgiveness, which was one of the Canada Reads books. I just saw it in Stratford. That area, and I'll flip back here, of the canneries, all in this area that used to be called Eburn. So he was also in that general area along the Fraser River.
Well, Councillor Steves, who just retired at the last election, told me stories about how all his friends were suddenly gone because he went to school with these kids and, you know, they disappeared and he couldn't believe it. So I just want to point out that on page 30 of our report, we have the stakeholder consultation sessions, and what came up was Japanese history on the site. And then again, the advisory committee on the environment recommended the same idea, and the Heritage Commission has also, in their recommendations, are including Japanese Canadian and the Indigenous relations to the place. So I'm so pleased that you've come and told us these stories, because I don't think that your ask is unreasonable. But thank you for sharing.
Thank you. And I did read that in the report, which was very well written and prepared and researched, and it was good to see that there are other constituents that have the same perspective.
And to the chair, I assume these two will be added to the minutes of the meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Day. We'll go to Councillor McNulty.
Yeah, thanks very much. I can relate to what you're doing, and our colleague at the back there. I guess I would like to see not just us changing the name. I was very involved when we changed Dawn and Lion Island to Sato and Oikawa Islands, just out in East Richmond, because the Siouan Maru came over from Japan, and we were involved in it. I don't know about display signage. Obviously, you're giving us some personal pictures and what have you. I just wonder what else you have in order to do some interpretive. I think that when you change the name of a house, and you can put a plaque on it, so it's called, and no disrespect to it, but we've got to have a story.
Yeah.
And are there more photos that staff would be able to utilize and share? Because when you come along, it would be nice to know, and I'm glad you recognize the number of canneries. I just did a book on Sea Island and put out there and mentioned the canneries and the community just across the water at Acme Cannery. There were 300 families living there.
Yeah, and they were largely Japanese Canadians as well.
Japanese,
Yeah.
Right at Cannery, right, 200 meters across the arm. So I guess I'm just wondering what other resources are available, because if we're going to make a referral, I was going to add to it in terms of interpretation, in terms of signage and what have you, as well, to embellish what you're requesting.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm sad to say that I don't have a lot. So, I will, when they were asked to evacuate, they had 1 or 2 suitcases.
They lost everything.
And I don't think pictures were high on the list. The Koyanakis have more pictures than I've ever seen before, but I will ask around with the family.
Would the Nike Museum have it on South Oaks and South Vancouver? It would be worthwhile passing it on to staff where resources could be.
I'm sure there are some pictures in some archives, but I honestly haven't found a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Heed.
Yes, and thank you very much. With respect to that, my mother, her closest friend were Japanese people that were interned and then settled in Kelowna. She went to school with them, such fond memories. But I just did a check on AI. And this is what I found out because I didn't know this. And correct me if I'm wrong with some of this. Construction was built by Joshua Parsons, a carpenter who worked at the Teranova Cannery. Early ownership, Joshua Parsons and his family were among the first settlers in Teranova, arriving around the late 1880s. Shimano family, in 1909, Kyotaro Shimano bought the house for his family. Internment, the Shimano family was displaced from the house in 1942 due to the internment of Japanese Canadians during World War II. Post-internment, after the war, the house was occupied under the Soldier Settlement Act. Later occupants, artists Anne Kipling and Leonard Epp, moved into the house in 1967. Current status of Parsons House is one of several city-owned heritage homes in the Teranova area. So that in itself just educated me about knowing what the advent of the situation you've described came forward. Incredible. And, there may be some pushback from us on us, let's be right up front, from people who think that it should remain the Parsons House. But when you look at the story here, you really have to take that into consideration. So tell me, is that correct? From your enormous amount of work on this?
By the way, I also specialize in AI, and I know it can hallucinate, but in this case, this is absolutely true. That is the true story. So I wish it were a hallucination.
Thank you.
All right. So then, if there's no further questions online or around the table, we will thank you for coming forward, bringing all this, and being available for further consultation as this process.
Thank you to council.
Right, thank you. All right, now I'd like to call staff forward on this and to see if they have anything to add to the report, and as well to respond to the 2 presentations we just had.
I have nothing further to add. I might say that those are two hard acts to follow, but be that as it may, I can definitely speak to the contents of the report.
Thanks. All right, is there any questions, any discussion around the table? All right, so, okay, so that's moved, seconded. I would like to make an addition, so it could be a referral, but we'll perhaps make it as a third bullet under the recommendation, as long as it's approved. So the referral would be to take the two presentations, the content of them, put the visual presentations into the minutes, and have staff further review our existing Phase 2 draft program plan, see if there's additional consultation groups, to look at our existing naming policy and naming requests that have come forward today, and to have staff come back along with approving the Phase 2 draft, proceeding with Phase 3. I think this would be the kind of third bullet there, as opposed to a whole separate thing. I think we just roll it all in because, yeah, it's all there. So that's what I'd like to move that as a referral. Okay. Okay, great. So with that in there and no further discussion, no questions to staff on that? Okay, then the question to call. All those in favor? And that's motion carried. All right. Thank you very much, staff. That brings us to a final item, followed by some managers' reports. Item number 3 is the Wharves Regulation Bylaw number 10182 amendments. And if staff have anything further to add, please share.
Nothing further to add. I'm available to answer questions.
Great, thanks. I would, yeah, just like one brief question. It's been moved and seconded. That's great. My question is if you could just highlight how this change will impact the one organization that I've heard uses this facility as a commercial dock. So the National Geographic boat that comes a few times a year. How will this new bylaw amendment support their operation here and perhaps allow for other similar commercial interests?
To the chair, with consultation to National Geographic and their shipping agent, they were appreciative of the cost certainty that we're providing them, that there's essentially a fixed fee based on the length of the boat, and they understand the rationale behind the fee as cost recovery plus providing the funds to maintain the facility.
Great. And so we might see other organizations value this program setup for if they were to come utilize it and pay the fee structure.
Through the chair, we don't solicit, additional boats to come in, but should other boats identify that they want to use Imperial Landing, we're always happy to serve.
Great, perfect. Okay, then it's been moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Is everybody all right? That is carried. Thank you very much. All right, under managers' reports, maybe we'll see what staff want to start with. I know there's a couple things here. So.
Thank you. Just to speak to the last delegation, the Shimano and Koyanagi families are both mentioned in the Richmond Museum's walking tour of Teranova Park. So that's a self-guided tour that's available online. So it's a good place to point people if they're looking for more information. And I just have a couple of updates on the Kaiwa Maru and FIFA. So you will be receiving a memo later this week with some more information. So we've started the work on ensuring the docks and other infrastructure are ready to go for next May when the boat arrives. We will be in communication with the boat at the end of the month. Kevin Lanchbury, a translator, will actually be in Japan on business, and we'll be meeting with them in person. So we have sent a proposal for dates and times in a program, and he'll be able to discuss that with them directly in person. So hoping to confirm dates and a few other details as our next step. And the community working group will be meeting in October. We'll have our first meeting of that group in October. In terms of FIFA, the organization has confirmed the dates of the Canada matches as June 12th, June 18th, and June 24th. And we will be attending a meeting with the presidents of the community associations next week to talk about what their plans for the FIFA activations at the community centers will be. Just a couple other quick updates. We have the Richmond Museum exhibit opening on Thursday at 7, and it's called the Maple Road Experience, and it features a really amazing collection of skateboard memorabilia from Kevin Harris, who is a lifelong Richmond resident and was a significant person in the skateboarding world globally. That'll be followed by the Culture Days launch on Saturday at 11 a.m. at the Cultural Center. Kevin will be on hand doing personal guided tours of the exhibit on Saturday for people that are interested. And we had a new exhibit open at the Art Gallery that will also be hosting special programming for Culture Days on the weekend.
Great. And no questions on any of that. And one further staff update.
Exactly. Through the chair, I'm excited to share information regarding the Culture Moves Us community celebration this Saturday, September 20th at the Minner Center for Active Living Outdoor Plaza from 9 a.m. to noon. Happening as part of Culture Days in Richmond, this event will celebrate the community's contributions towards Richmond being named Canada's most active community in the 2025 Participation Community Challenge. The celebration will include free try-it classes, such as an outdoor Zumba class at 9 a.m., as well as cultural performances, community information booths, and other fun, family-friendly activities. A formal ceremony and award presentation emceed by Mayor Brody will take place from 10 to 10:30 a.m. on the plaza. Our community partners have been invited to attend, and representatives from Participation will be there to present Richmond's award. All are welcome.
Great, appreciate that. No further comments, questions from anyone? Any further? Oh, Councillor Galanders has a question on from Zoom. Oh, where'd she go?
Hi, Chair. Thank you. I wonder if this is an okay time to bring this up. I would have added it possibly to the agenda, but I had an emergency. I had to drive into Vancouver, so I was on Zoom and driving and wasn't able to get that in there. What about our world champion Olympians from Richmond? Are we planning on doing any recognition of Cameron Rogers and Evan Dunphy at council next week?
Through the chair to Councillor Galanders, we are aware of the wonderful achievements that they've made. We understand that Cameron is at school down in the U.S., and we do understand that I was just watching online last night that Evan is coming back for his wedding, I think on October 5th. So we can certainly reach out to them and see about recognizing them in due time and when appropriate for their schedules.
Yes, that makes sense. So then we'll be able to celebrate them in person like we did last time after the Olympics.
Great, thanks for bringing that forward, Councillor Galanders. All right, I'll call for adjournment, and we're adjourned. Thank you very much.